This video is for IB Digital Society students and teachers. In particular, it's for higher level. It's a focus on higher level. Now, what I want to do, I've just built a lot of resources to try and help students and teachers navigate their way through the high level extension activities. And I've created them basically to help you prepare for exams. Now, one of the challenges for teachers is we have Digital Society IB guidebooks, but when we look at the material for HL, sometimes we scratch our heads and wonder exactly how we're going to deliver this and what the IB examiners actually want. So I've done a fair bit of research now that we're into the Digital Society course a couple of years. I've had a chance to access some past papers which have been marked by examiners, and I've got their notes. So I've had a heavy emphasis on what needs to be done to get a really good score for your on your exams, and I've basically reverse engineered that. So created a course or some resources that basically help students prepare to get top marks. Now, if you go to this website, Digital Society, ibdigitalsociety.com, way over here there's the level 5, section 5 or component 5, which is called the HL extension, extended inquiries. Now, if you just look at this, I can understand and I can empathize with teachers and students thinking, what on earth do we have to do? Basically, it talks about 4 different stages, and there's actually not much there. Now, because this material is so thin, I've had to basically flesh it out. So if you go to the blog section, what I've done, I've created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different blog posts, all for HL, and you'll see the main title there, IBDP Digital Society HL. So if you're an HL teacher or as HL students, if you focus on these when you're doing your preparation, hopefully they'll help you. Now, one other thing I want to focus on, you'll notice I've got stage 1, stage 1, stage 1, stage 1, stage 2, stage 2, stage 2, and I don't have stage 3, and then I've got stage 4. So going back to that last section, so for core, so for the Digital Society core component, which is SL and HL students, the IB says that you need to do 120 hours, and that covers basically what is Digital Society, all the concepts, all the content, and all the context. Now, when it comes to HL, you've got an extra 90 hours. Now, how that's divided up is 60 hours you're supposed to be covering this area here. This area here is the prescribed area for inquiry. So if you're a teacher, you're supposed to guide your students through all of these different areas. Now, if you're a student doing some self-study, you should have a good understanding of each of us. So I've got some blog posts that are related to just covering that in the stage 1 section. Then the stage 2 section. So stage 2 then focuses a bit more on the challenges. So if you go to one of the topics, say for example, global well-being, local and global inequalities, there are a lot of challenges associated with this. So I've got a few blog posts that focus entirely on the challenges associated with each of these. Now, I don't have stage 3 because stage 3 are interventions. Now, when you're sitting in your exam, when you do paper 1, you're going to have a section B. Higher level students have to do section B. And what that is, they present an intervention, some kind of a digital intervention, and then you have to evaluate it and make some recommendations. So the interventions are actually provided in paper 1, and then in paper 3, which is for the HL students, you have 2 interventions. So they suggest 2 different digital interventions to try and address whatever challenge might be in the pre-reading. So the idea is that because the interventions are already provided, I haven't really done any resources. I haven't built any resources for that, but I have got I've got some good resources for this stage 4 evaluation. So here's how to tackle it. 60 hours covering all of this, but also within the 60 hours you should have an understanding of stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 and stage 4. Then what happens, the IB are going to deliver you a pre-release statement, which is an example up here. This is the May 2024 version. So a couple of months before the actual exam, the pre-release statement will be shared with all the Digital Society teachers and shared with the students. And your job is to do a focused investigation and research into that, all the area, or everything associated with that pre-release. Now that's where you spend your 30 hours. So that totals up to the 90 hours. Now, the way you're tackling the pre-release, first of all, you're going to do a deep dive. You're going to do an inquiry into whatever. So this one here is global well-being. So you're going to do a really focused approach and research all about global well-being and whatever content that this pre-release statement addresses. Then you're going to look at the specific challenges associated with this pre-release statement. But then you're going to read then you're going to consider the interventions. Now, the pre-release statements will have, in fact, I'll show you here. So the pre-release, so here is the scenario. So this is about healthcare, medicine, and remote and rural communities. Then they've got 2 interventions. So the idea here is that you do for stage 3, you investigate and do more of a thorough research and exploration of these 2 interventions. But you also must evaluate these interventions and also suggest some recommendations, make some recommendations about these 2 interventions. And the IB specifically talks about how to evaluate and which addresses these areas as well. So anyway, let's get back to my blog posts. So let's talk about, first of all, the stage 1. Now, the stage 1, basically, I'll just open one up so you get an idea. Stage 1 for 5.2 governance and human rights, you're supposed to research conflict, peace and security, participation and representation, diversity and discrimination. Now, if you're just provided with that, sometimes you just don't quite know which direction to research. So that is why I've created this blog post, which basically acts as a signpost and suggests different ways that you could do a more of a thorough research or an investigation into these different areas. So you'll see the first one, conflict, peace and security. I've identified a few key terms. I've identified a few digital key themes associated. Then I've got a few contemporary theories. So what I'm trying to suggest is, are there any theories or thinkers or research associated with that where students and teachers could explore more thoroughly? Now, just keep in mind, you don't study all of this. Just pick out the ones that you find interesting, because you don't have enough time to study it all. Pick out the ones that are interesting to you or applicable to your situation wherever in the world you are. Key thinkers. So who are the key thinkers and what are their theories that are associated with this field of study? And then, really importantly, I've got some case studies. So the reason I've got the case studies is they're well-established case studies, so you can do so your teachers or even yourself, you can do a couple of learning activities to really explore some of these real-life situations. Now, the real-life situations, the case studies, are perfect material for for you in the exam. So to get top marks for the exam, you need to often link to a real-life example. So a case study is exactly a real-life example. And the other thing, if you want to get top marks, you need to demonstrate that you've done some independent research. So if you research one of these, you're doing independent research. And if you drag that into your response, you're demonstrating you've done independent research and you're identifying a real-life example. And that kind of stuff is gold when the examiners are marking your exam paper. So there's some case studies. Again, don't cover them all. Just focus on one that you maybe find interesting. Or this might just be a springboard to think, okay, I get the idea. There's the Israel-Gaza war. There's the Russian-Ukraine conflict. And then you might get an idea. Oh, hang on, there's another one that's more closer to my region, which I think would be really good to research. Go for it. You research that other one. So don't feel that you have to research these ones. or one of these are just suggestions. And again, the reason I'm adding these suggestions is because the overall framework that the IB provide is very thin. So this is the next stage, acting as a springboard or signposting, helping students and teachers know what to study and research in more detail. Linking to the concepts and... Okay, so I've done it for each of the areas. So this resource hopefully will inspire further investigation. So I've done that for... let me see, stage 1. So I've done stage 1, 5.1. Now, just so you're aware, for stage 1, I've done 5.1, and then I did it again. The reason I've done this twice is when I first started researching, I did more of a human science big picture. So, but then after getting into it a little bit further, I thought, hang on, we need to focus a bit more on digital technology. So the second one, 5.1, that's more of a focus on digital technology. I didn't delete this one because I still think it's quite applicable. So you get this first one is a bit more of a big picture. The second one is more of a focus on digital technology. So that's why there's 2. I've done it again for 5.2. That's the one I showed you. And then I've got it for 5.3. So this is the area that you should be spending your 60 hours in class, kind of covering these ideas and issues and concerns. Stage 2. Now, stage 2 is the investigating the challenges. So no matter what it might be, so if we look back to this one here, so it talks about access to healthcare. So we need to talk about the challenges. So before we think about interventions, which is the way to address the challenges, we need to have a good understanding of the challenges. So with regard to stage 2, I've got 3 different posts, again, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, which focus in on the challenges. Now, what I've been looking for are things like, are there any statistics or information about the challenges from well-recognized organizations like United Nations or World Health Organizations? So any kind of like key statistics, like some well-known, well-researched from reputable sources, what do they say about different challenges? So if you look at 5.3 sustainable development, here are some key findings. Now, again, don't study them all. Just focus on the ones that are applicable or interesting to you. This is early on, but when you're doing your preparation and you've got the pre-release, look at the pre-release and then match it with some of these key findings. And then again, it's a springboard. Go and research further. So when you're in the exam room, you can specifically talk about the challenges coming from and citing some kind of a source like the United Nations or WHO or whatever it might be. So these posts are all about different challenges associated with the different areas. So this can be a springboard for further study. Okay, let's get back to the next stage. So we're now moving on to stage 4. Now stage 4, remember, you now need to do some evaluation. So the key here is with stage 4, and I'll open this up now, when the exam question says evaluate, so first of all, one of the things that pop into mind, and you might remember this if you ever did MYP, strengths and weaknesses, that kind of thing, that's an easy way to evaluate. Now remember, when you're evaluating, you're not just talking about all the strengths, you're not talking about all about the weaknesses, but you're doing a balanced kind of an evaluation. This is a critical evaluation. So that's the starting point. Now the evaluation, then the IB Digital Society course creators want you to focus on doing an evaluation with a couple of key areas. So they want you to evaluate through the lens of equity. Now the easiest thing to do is latch on to equity and something like a theory like Van Dyke's digital divide theory. So whatever the intervention might be, you could write about strengths and weaknesses using from the perspective of Van Dyke's 3 levels of the digital divide. You can do a paragraph about that. And then maybe acceptability. Now again, in the exam room, you can't cover 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You don't have enough time. So you only grab hold of a couple of these. So you might talk about ethics. Maybe you've got a good handle on ethics. So whatever the intervention might be, you want to talk about the strengths and weaknesses from an ethical perspective. And I tell you, one of the easiest ways to do this, if you focus just on the ethical principles. There's a bunch of ethical principles. So if you have a good understanding of ethical principles, you could analyze or you can evaluate through that lens. But again, this will demonstrate you've done some independent research into ethics, or you've done some independent research into innovation. Now, one of the best ones here is this disruptive innovation. So if you don't know what this is, research more. If you don't know what innovation adoption lifecycle is, research more. So again, this is for you. This is just a signpost for you to do further research. So that is stage 4. Now, the last thing I did was have more of a focus on the actual exam papers. So the exam papers, I've had some exam papers that have the examiner's notes on them. Now, I've done a bit of reverse engineering where with the help of AI tools, I've loaded up paper 3 with all the examiner's comments, and I've asked AI tools to basically tell me about some patterns. What are some do's and don'ts? What are the non-negotiables? Like what are the IB examiners, what are their patterns? What are they looking for? Now, I've had to do this because basically a lot of digital society teachers, we actually don't know. We are not told exactly what the examiners are looking for. We've got some bare bones assessment criteria, but we know when the examiners are marked, they've got some specific things they're looking for. And because this is not a public announcement, I've had to do some reverse engineering by loading as many exam papers as I can into AI tools and trying to work out what are the examiners looking for. And as a result, I've put together this guide here. So basically, for exam paper 3, now what I'm focusing on are the last 2 questions, which are the 8-mark and the 12-mark questions. This is where your focus is. Now, one of the beauties of this one is you can, because you've got the pre-release statement and you've got 30 hours to focus in on, do your research on that, you can go into the exam room armed and ready to go. So you can do a lot of preparation for this because you know you're going to have to evaluate interventions and make some recommendations. So here's what to do for question 3 and 4 based on real exam papers. So this blog post here is going to arm you with some strategies and techniques and a framework for you to answer question 3 and answer question 4. So this is now examination preparation, because you've covered all the content and you've studied all the other areas, the challenges, the interventions. Now you've got all this in your brain. Now you need to have the correct strategies for the exam room. Now, one of the sad things that happen with students is sometimes they do have lots of information, but when they're in the exam room, they don't have the right strategy. So this blog post is giving you the right strategies for paper 3, question 3 and 4. And I've done the same for exam paper 1. Now, when you're for exam paper 1, the SL students and the HL students all do section A. And then the SL students leave the exam room and the HL students stay there, and then they do section B. So this is about section B, and section B is about an intervention, and they're asking you to evaluate and make some recommendations. So here are some strategies for you to ace exam paper 1, section B. Anyway, they're the resources I've built for teachers and for students. I hope they help, and good luck.